What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and we're here for another edition of our Daily Drop podcast series. And AJ, we're here to talk about Jaden Young, by the numbers, Virginia Tech transfer in Carolina's latest commit in the portal class. Go watch the podcast we did for his commitment. We provide a lot of context in there and talk about him a little bit more in there. Maybe even pause this and go watch that before we dive into this, because we're going to be exploring his numbers a little bit more and what he did at Virginia Tech and what he could maybe potentially do at North Carolina this season as well. So let me just run through some basic stats from his.
And let me interject real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I got to interrupt at least once. The reason it's good to listen to that is because it tells you kind of how it played out. Because a lot of people really misunderstood and still misunderstood a little bit that had no connection to anything else they've been doing in the portal. Yes. No connection to Stojakovic or anybody else they might consider looking at or might offer. It was like an add-on. It was an extra.
And I think it makes sense when you understand his background a little bit. North Carolina kid, and obviously the allure and appeal of playing at a place like North Carolina. Yeah, of course.
He says he can look up in all the banners and tell you everything about all those guys.
And that's awesome. And I think that's something that Carolina fans will obviously really like and be drawn to with him immediately.
I can't wait to have that conversation with him. That's going to be fun.
He might, be very quickly become a fan favorite in that respect. But to focus on his 2 seasons at Virginia Tech, played in 58 games, 937 minutes total, shot 34%, essentially 35% from the floor there, 31% from three, 40% of his shots inside the arc he hit, and 84% from the free throw line as well. So, again, a guy at Virginia Tech who you look at and you're not, the numbers aren't necessarily jumping out at you. You know what I mean? You're not like, oh my God, this guy averaged, double figures at Virginia Tech and was kind of their leading scorer and kind of their go-to guy at the guard position. He's not that, but like we illustrated essentially in the podcast we did for his commitment, what he's coming in to do is essentially be a backup option for North Carolina at the guard position, a position they obviously lost a lot of guys at this offseason, either going in the portal or moving on to their professional career. So I think you have to understand that part about maybe what he will be for North Carolina to really analyze and look at the stats. So what do you make it of what he did at Virginia Tech before we move on to looking ahead at what he might be for North Carolina last year? Because one of the things I do like about it, and I talk about this a lot, is I'm always a big fan of going out and getting guys that have played and have experience in a Power 5 conference and even more importantly in your league. I think that is a big attractive thing from a Hubert Davis in North Carolina perspective too, because at least it has some familiarity with the type of competition you're going to be playing against. And he's a guy that's played in all these buildings that Carolina will be traveling to and whatnot as well. So focusing on Virginia Tech, what maybe stands out to you about Jaden Young and kind of what he was for the Hokies?
Well, he started 10 games. He's probably not going to roll out there this summer and say, well, I'm just a backup. He's going to compete, but he understands that there may have been a minutes trade-off at Virginia Tech for the experience that you have at North Carolina and wearing a uniform that he dreamt of for years. That he's the kind of guy I can see, and I don't know him at all. I'm just saying there are guys out there that they get to a certain school, like Rudy. You put on the uniform, you look at yourself in the mirror, because every athlete does that. I know that especially in football and baseball, you got to really primp. I used to do that in high school all the time. I used to go in the weight room and look in the mirror and say, okay, neck roll looks good. I'm ready to roll, man. In baseball, stirrups look perfect, ready to roll.
Hey, look good, play good. Look good, play good.
Yeah, back when everybody wore stirrups. I'm kind of disgusted now that a lot of teams don't, a lot of players don't. But anyway, I'll vent there on some Orioles thing. So he's going to have an opportunity to have an amazing experience. What he did do, he was third in Virginia Tech in scoring, and he led them and made three-pointers. Those are noteworthy numbers. And he got to third in scoring because if you look at his last 6 games of the season, when Mike Young just turned him loose, he averaged 16.3 points. He went for 27 against Miami. He went for 26 against Syracuse. And you'll see in the 6 best games Jaden Young played and what they might mean when we run this summer, that when he got points in those games were big time. He had bunches of points at the exact right time. He stepped up at times for them this year. So he's a guy that has played in the moment. He's had success in the moment. So it's somebody texted me and said, well, is this the Ty Claude of the backcourt? I'm like, no. Ty Claude bounced around, was a solid backup at Georgia Tech, actually helped beat Carolina, but there wasn't a lot of been there, done that. There's more been there, done that with Jaden Young. And then you see the development. We talked about Jaron Stevenson, about some aspects of his game that may have gotten better. Or we talk about Kyan Young, how his game just got better and better and better and better. Jonathan Powell from West Virginia, the transfer, go look at the rebound numbers. Start the first game and read down. Suddenly you're going to go from seeing 1s and 2s, 6, 7, 8s, and 9s a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. You see growth. With Jaden Young, clearly you see growth. Through the first 26 games, 6.2 points a game. The last 6 games, 16.3 points a game. That's growth. And you want to get guys that are trickling on the upside. And all 5 guys that are coming to Carolina have done that. Vasar, the last couple of games, wasn't highly productive, but I think his overall game was much better second half of the year than first half of the year. And again, when you read all that stuff, you'll see why. And you'll even see what his coach said at Arizona about that. So I like the fact they get a guy who finished on the upside. If he's an add-on, which we think he is an add-on, he's an add-on with the potential to help. You're getting someone who's coming in with confidence, someone who's coming in, I think, loose with nothing to lose. He was going to transfer to High Point. And one of the reasons, and people have been critical of this, and this is why you got to read, and you got to comb, you got to peel the layers, and David Smith did a fantastic interview with him and also his high school coach. He was going to go to High Point because his dad runs a basketball program at a school like almost across the street from High Point. And his dad had a tough time going up to Blacksburg to see him play. So he's like, hey, Dad, why don't I just go to High Point? We're right across the street from you and come see me play all the time. That's why he's going to go there. Plus, he would have been the man. Why not go there and be the man? High Point's got a beautiful arena.
Yeah, nice arena.
Pretty good. They've had some success there. Scott Cherry had some decent teams. Tubby Smith. They've had some success there. So why not? That's nothing wrong with playing there. He already had the ACC experience, so why not go have something like that? But then their coach left. And then Carolina came along. They actually reached out to Carolina. His family did. So I think if you're going to barely pay anything for something, and you're buy one and you like the knife commercials. Well, if you order this knife and you also get this set, well, he's the also get this set guy, but he's not crap, made in some cubby hole in New Guinea. He is a ACC basketball player who went for 27 and 26, averaged 16.3 over the last 6 games, and he's going to walk onto the court, the Smith Center at practice, and say, okay, I'm here to compete. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty damn impressive add-on. He may end up doing very little for Carolina, but the bolstering effect and the option that if a couple of things don't go well, there's always that guy there who's played some. I think that helps. He's going to make them better in a lot of different ways because of all those things. He may never be a feature guy. Hubert may never draw up one shot for him, but he could still help this program because of the reasons I've said. And he loves being there. He wants to be there. You got 2 guys now that'll say this to us, right? Seth Trimble says you got to play for this. You damn well know Jaden Young's going to say you got to play for this.
We need more guys like that. And I think that there's a lot less of those guys out there because of the transfer portal and the NIL era we live in now. So, yeah, I think that is an intangible that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but it is a big positive for your program. And one of the stats, I want to focus on this for a second. We'll translate this into talking about what he could potentially be at North Carolina before we head on out of here. But this is a stat from your piece that I really like, and I think that really shows that maybe some of the upside that he has there. You mentioned how he ended the season really well. I think that's a big positive. But in the 7 games Virginia Tech played against Duke, Clemson, Louisville, Carolina, Michigan, and Vanderbilt, all NCAA tournament teams, he averaged 9.3 points per game, so a little bit higher than his season average, in 25.2 minutes per. Also had 5 assists and 11 boards, shot 36% from the floor and 35% from 3. So none of those jump out at you too much. But again, the points per game average,
okay.
It's good. It's not fantastically spectacular, but it's good.
It's not going to lose you games.
Exactly.
May not win you games, but 35 is generally not going to lose you games.
You're not going to be mad at that, especially against the competition we just illustrated, all those teams being NCAA tournament teams. So again, I think that just kind of shows that, when you look at his base level stats, you look at what Virginia Tech, he's not somebody that's just going to jump out at you when you land him and say, wow, like, I can't believe we got this guy. But the fact that he wanted to be there didn't cost Carolina a lot. He ended the season on a tear really impressively, and also is a guy that in the bigger games that Virginia Tech played, he was a guy who played up to the competition, didn't kind of shy away. He wasn't a guy that, okay, you look at 7 games against the NCAA tournament teams and he averaged 4 points a game. Then you're kind of sitting here and saying, that's a little bit of a concern. But what he did against those teams, I think, again, is a big positive. So, again, I think he's a guy that comes in as a backup option at the guard position, who wants to be there, who, like you said, grew up a guy that loves Carolina and the allure of playing for a program like North Carolina, that was more attractive than going out there and maybe trying to get paid more elsewhere. I think there's a lot of things to like about Jaydon Young for what he's being brought in as. If he's brought in, AJ, if he's being brought in to be your starting 2 guard, then I think we're sitting here and saying, this is a little bit more concerning, and I'm not sure how this is going to work. But for what he's being brought in to do and being that backup option, I think I said it in the commitment podcast, I think it's one that makes a lot of sense when you understand the full context of it. And I think there's also some things you can point at and say, these numbers are kind of intriguing. I wonder maybe if he can take that next step, maybe he can become a really important role player for North Carolina.
I love what you said. I don't know if we've done everything's running together. You either said it before we hit record or after we hit record that he could become a fan favorite.
Yeah.
In an era where guys are just chasing the bag. And if you look at comments, man, go get the bag, go get yours. Here's a guy who didn't chase the bag. Maybe there wasn't much of a bag out there for him. Maybe he was just never interested in the bag because he either wants to play across the street from dad or his dream school. Pretty good options. Mm-hmm. I think that Carolina fans will really like him because there's a throwback element to him. He just wants to be a part of a program. Why did Carolina fans love Bobby Frazier so much? In today's era of college basketball, Bobby Frazier would have been a perfect candidate to transfer because he started as a freshman at point guard, second in the ACC in assists, and then here comes Ty Lawson.
Oh, yeah. But in today's world, Bobby Frazier would be gone.
But Bobby Frazier scored in the national title game, and it was such a personally rewarding moment for him, for his dad, who's a great high school basketball coach in the Chicago area. And that's from a guy who started as a freshman. And that was his senior year. So you got to love having guys like that. People used to dog on Andrew Platek, but Andrew Platek, praise the Lord, every day to wear that practice jersey and that game jersey.
Yeah, he got that. Yeah,
I heard a story about when he went to Siena that his first workout he wore Carolina stuff because it was the norm. And guys like, you're at Siena now, and he said to someone, "But this is so hard to take off." You want to have guys like that. They may not win you a lot of games, but you need to have the right culture and program. If you have 2 guys like this in your program, Jacob, in the portal era, that's not bad. I'm right now. I'm hunting for positives. I'm not going to critique the negatives in his game. And there are some. He doesn't shoot very well inside the lane. He's pretty strong, but I think he plays into contact too much, which is why he misses too many shots. He was 0 for 12 from the field in the ACC tournament. Mm-hmm. So, and he shot a lot. So here's a guy that suddenly catches fire, scores a lot of points, and he gets a little trigger happy. Those kind of things can be reined in. But look at the team he played on. They weren't very good. I don't know how on earth that team went 8-12 in the ACC. Mike Young should have a statue built right outside Castle Coliseum for going 8-12 with that club. But you know who you would remember is that young guy. Mm-hmm. Because the little spark he plays with. And when Carolina went up there and played, he scored. It was a close game with the first, I don't know how many minutes, and he was productive. I think he scored 8 of their first 12 points. They were in it. I mean, you didn't really know where the game was going to go, and then Carolina just took off. But I think to have a guy like this, that in this program with the other guys that are there, and you're not going in saying, "Look, man, we need to ride you hard." Now, I don't think he's a horse you can ride hard, but I think he's a horse that can be on the track, and that helps
for sure. And I think, when you just look at, and Carolina needs players too, and needs bodies, and it needs guys that, when you look at the sheer amount of roster turnover they've had, I mean, it's also important to have guys that are okay with maybe not being a starter and okay with playing limited minutes. You need guys like that on your roster, especially when you look at the sheer amount of players that Carolina lost this offseason, particularly at that guard position. So, yeah, for what he is, for what he's being brought in to be, for the amount of money that he costs, very little. I think it's a move that makes a lot of sense. And I'm not saying that he's going to have his jersey hung in the rafters after a couple of seasons in North Carolina. I'm pretty confident.
Hubert might say it.
Yeah, Hubert might say it. You're right.
Hubert might say it. We're not saying it.
Yeah, be the best guard in Carolina history, according to Hubert. But he's a guy that I think he ticks a lot of those boxes. And I could see him becoming a fit. If he can come in and produce off the bench and be a guy that when he plays does something positive, when you look at his background and players and, fans understand more about that, and that gets opened up a little bit more, and particularly why he really wanted to come to Carolina. Like I said, I think he's easily a guy that fans could really, really, like and enjoy and be glad that he's around. So yeah, a lot of things.
By the way, Dante Mayo's going to have a statue, right? He never said that. I'm just throwing it in there for fun, just trolling a little bit.
Yeah, just having a little fun, man. Just having a little fun here, man.
James Brown, come on, Hubert.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Montrezl Styles, Marco Dunn. We could have a whole podcast where we just air the Hubertisms.
There's been a few.
But you know what, though? You got to love the optimism. And he's an optimist. And he's an optimist.
Yeah, he's a glass half full guy for sure.
He's an optimist. I don't have a problem with that. I mean,
yeah.
You could keep some of the optimism quiet so we don't throw it back at you, but whatever.
Yeah, you don't need to say that so-and-so is going to be
he'll say what he'll say about Jaden Young. I love coaching him. I love coaching guys that want to be here. He cares so much about this program, which is why I think Jaden Young is going to quickly morph into things as if he'd been there, like it's his third year there. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be that kind of guy. So Hubert will say those things. He'll say he called Jalen Washington adorable last October, which was not the right word. And it kind of played out like maybe he was too adorable. He won't say adorable with Jaden Young, but he'll say a word. He'll use a word to describe him kind of as we're talking, but better because he'll know him. Mm-hmm. And he will have had the luxury of being around him all the time for several months. But sometime next October, if he's asked about him, he'll have an interesting line to say about him, and it will be very positive.
Yeah, and again, it's just so important in today's era of college sports to just have guys on your roster that want to be there for, other reasons besides just monetary. And I'm not saying that every guy you get's like that, because they're not, but it is a lot more. It's a different sport we live in now, in a different kind of era of college sports. So having guys that are not coming here because of a check and are coming here because they want to be here and be involved with the program, even though they might not start every game. I mean, he would have been the guy at High Point. No, I want to come here and play a backup role because I want to be at the University of North Carolina. You got to respect that about a guy. And I think that's a reason that, again, I think some fans will, potentially really like what he is and what he could become at North Carolina. So yeah, man, I think overall positive for what he's coming in to be. And yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what he is for North Carolina next year. Cause I think you could easily see it playing out both ways, AJ. I think in a world you could see him coming in and maybe not contributing much like a Ty Claude, like you said. I think there is a reality of that, like there is with anybody that's coming in to be a backup player. But I think he's also a guy that could come in and do some nice things off the bench for North Carolina too. So yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. But on the surface, yeah, I think it's a fine pickup. And again, it makes sense when you understand the full context surrounding it. So that's my last thing on it.
And listen to the commit pod.
Listen to that. Listen to that for sure. You'll find that on our YouTube channel. It didn't come out too long after this one comes out. So yeah, go check that one out as well. Yeah, let's get out of here, man. I've been Jacob Turney. He's been Andrew Jones. Another edition of our daily drop. Jaden Young by the numbers. Let us know in the comments. What do you think about Jaden Young? Do you like him? Do you what do you think he can be for North Carolina this upcoming season? We want to hear from you guys as always. And make sure you like, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell too. And I've done a bad job blasting this, but head on over to Twitter, head on over to Facebook. Links are in the description below. Go like our pages over there. We'll be giving away some more free subscriptions to TarHeelIllustrated.com. We're also on the race for 25K on YouTube. We're getting close to that 21,000 number. So want to see if we can get that. Maybe off season slows down a little bit. Maybe early football season next year, we can kind of eclipse that 25,000 mark. Maybe
I'm thinking during fall camp before they play TCU.
Yeah, I think if people actually listen when I say
hit all these numbers before they play TCU.
Yeah, I think there's a chance.
Facebook will pick back. Facebook will hit 15. We'll probably make 17 or 18 our goal for Facebook. We'll change that again. We'll give you more stuff away. Mm-hmm. But I think 40,000 stretch, but 40,000 and 25,000 by the TCU game are both legit.
I think they're doable. Yeah, Twitter's been the slowest. So go over there and
Twitter's almost 36. So
yeah. Go like us on Twitter as well and follow us over there too. Again, that's probably been the slowest moving one, and I can kind of understand that in some ways. It's not a platform for everybody too, I will say that, so I can understand it for sure. But yeah, all the links are below, and we appreciate everybody as always. See y'all next time. Thanks.